the money that you will make by optimizing pays for the service itself manyfold over. We achieved that incredible reduction in backorder rate from 4% down to 1% without actually increasing our inventory value. But I definitely appreciate what it's done to our profitability, and the bottom line. There's an opportunity cost we didn't even realize in the past that we were missing out on. And now that the purchasers have more hours in their day, we've got 5 people spending much less time playing in Excel spreadsheets on just getting the data ready to analyze.
So Caleb, thanks for joining me today and taking the time to talk about this. Before we jump into everything, could you just talk a little bit about what you do and what Rovers North does?
Sure. I'm the CEO at Rovers North. We were formerly a family business, and we've recently become an employee stock-owned company. So 100% employee-owned, ESOP. And we're in the niche business of importing and selling Land Rover parts, specifically for the old vehicles. So we cover everything from Series 2A Land Rovers all the way up to the modern Defender.
Yeah, that's awesome. And could you talk about some of the challenges that you guys had with managing all of those Land Rover parts before we started working together?
Absolutely. So we import everything from abroad, and mostly from the UK. There's quite a long lead time, and there's a lot of money tied up in inventory, and our ability to sell it really depends on whether or not we have it here. And back orders are expensive and a bunch of extra work for everybody involved. So inventory optimization has been really a meaningful endeavor for us.
What were some of the wins that you saw coming out of that after we implemented the solution for you guys?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I would say that, just taking a step back, it's a topic that a lot of people perhaps don't really invest in as much as they could, considering how much money we generally have tied up in our inventory and the ramifications of stock outages or overstocking and what that all looks like. And so for us, it's just been tremendous. The benefits have been tremendous. Not only are we better able to pick the appropriate amount to have in stock, which your models have suggested things that are not conclusions we would have arrived at, but we've been really trusting it and finding it really works out in our benefit, because the previous process relied on a lot of human interpretation, using methods that were far from scientific and a lot of judgment, moving towards something that's more founded in the numbers. So, we've been able to reduce our back order rate from 4% down to 1%, which has translated in an unknown amount of additional sales, because we don't really in the past have a great way of capturing if we run out of stock, how much our sales decrease because the customers aren't willing to wait. But then it's also tremendously reduced the expense of airing in back order items, doing free shipping on the back order, paying my team to pick, pack, invoice, get it through the shipping process, and then getting it back on the shelf. So, I think your formulas have done an incredible job of also not just increasing stock, but finding where we don't need to hold it. We achieved that incredible reduction in back order rate from 4% down to 1% without actually increasing our inventory value. So it's been super meaningful for us from that aspect of it, but it's also been really incredibly helpful from a workflow perspective. It was really important to me that we didn't just make the process more cumbersome. We have 5 full-time purchasers, and it's really important that they can get their job done not only effectively, but also efficiently, so that, we didn't implement some new time waste with a hypothetical, theoretical, like maybe it's going to help us save money. It actually made their jobs faster and easier the way you were able to implement it and push it into our sort of the operating, practices we already had, delivering really sort of easy to use tools that sort of fit in a workflow that they can use, and then and fulfill orders without it being inconvenient at all. It actually saves them time. So they like to use the tool for the time savings, but also we're getting much, much better results, which is everything when you're a stockist like us, because the goods are so far away, and it really, when you tie up this much money in inventory, it really matters where you're putting it. You're trying to get the most out of your investment, of course.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear about those results. Another part of this implementation is, because you guys have a sort of a unique approach to managing inventory, because you're importing from the other side of the world, and also being in the classic automotive parts business, there are certain items that it might not be particularly profitable to carry that SKU, and you might not have a ton of sales on that SKU, but from a strategic business perspective, it's really important to maintain some inventory level for it, because if you have a customer and their truck can't drive, then you're going to lose that customer to a competitor. So could you talk about a little bit of that process as we figured out what's the best way to build a model that actually optimizes relative to your business priorities and not just the theoretical most optimal inventory level?
Yeah, great question. So I think you're referring to what we have graded as the E-stock for essential. And that's that as a company, we've decided that there are certain things that could leave people stranded on the side of the road, and we always want to stock it regardless of what the model suggests. And this is just one of countless places in which you worked with my team of purchasers to figure out what they needed, and then we're able to adjust the model appropriately to get us something that would really work for us. And we really appreciated sort of the iterative process of building this tool. It wasn't like a off-the-shelf thing that you said, here's your perfect inventory levels. You really listened to feedback from our team and helped us bring in extra either modifiers or qualifying factors to make it work just for us, which has been hugely important. And I don't think we would have been able to get there with sort of an off-the-shelf product, especially because you really took the time to understand the structure of our data and then work that into what you're delivering. It's not something that could be plug and play elsewhere. And we're not the biggest company in the world, but there's 35, 38 people here, depending on how you count. And when you're this big, nothing really canned, pre-made seems to be at all right. And we have all of these unique factors about what we're doing that makes everything from the way we keep the data to the sales we see, factors like size and weight based on how often we can reorder. There's just so much going on. And then, of course, after you gave us the first round, we had to use it and then sort of give you feedback on how to further modify it, because I don't think there's any correct answer on any of this. It's really best for us, right? What works for our unique set of inputs that's going to give the best result. And we just couldn't be happier with what you've done with us. So, for us. So thank you very much.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, and that's, a key part of what we do is it's an iterative process. So we're always trying to make your particular implementation better and more suited for your particular business. So yeah, the goal is each month to see some improvement with it. So to sort of take a step back from the business lens, could you talk about how this has affected your personal life, just not having to deal with all the inventory headaches?
I definitely appreciate what it's done to our profitability, and the bottom line. But I know the purchasers are spending less time collecting and manipulating and massaging data for their own. We used to have our own sort of homegrown models, as you know, that did the job. They were not nearly as sophisticated and taking in as many factors and not doing the job nearly as well as what you've created. But what you've delivered has certainly saved them a bunch of time. They're able to focus on the other parts of the job, which really has created sort of a knock-on effect as we're spending less of our labor hours available, downloading, massaging, uploading, creating the reports that got us to the purchasing, with your tool running and then quickly delivering something that we can massage, create an order out of, upload, and then run with it. There's an opportunity cost we didn't even realize in the past that we were missing out on. And now that the purchasers have more hours in their day, we've got 5 people spending much less time playing in Excel spreadsheets on just getting the data ready to analyze. There's just all these extra benefits in, finding parts that are going to be better for us, finding better prices on the stuff we're already doing, and then all the sorts of other activities that they're doing that can, make sure that they're getting the product here better and we're able to sell more of it. And there's just a whole other host of stuff that was previously just something they never had time for. So we're really appreciative of the time savings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Caleb, what would you tell somebody who is thinking of working with me?
If you're actually keeping significant amount of inventory, tying up your capital, it's really a no-brainer, because the money that you will make by optimizing pays for the service itself manyfold over. And so it's one of those things that it's hard to put a price on. I think the pricing is excellent, but it's really hard to even begin to understand all the different ways it's helped us, because we don't know how many extra orders we have by doing a quarter as many back orders. Like all those times that we had run out in the past and then maybe customers didn't buy from us, or having your money put in the inventory that's going to be turning more often. It's interesting. I keep encountering some quite large companies who have really unsophisticated, very manual, cumbersome ways of doing what you've totally not just streamlined, but come up with just way better answers for. And it's shocking that more people aren't putting the amount of attention into this aspect of business. It seems like sort of purchasing departments in many companies are, if not left to fend for themselves, sort of an afterthought in comparison of the sales effort and the other side of the business, when any business owner will tell you that, all your money is tied up, or a lot of your money is tied up in your inventory and warehousing space and that whole effort. And so, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I think if you've got inventory assets, it's not just about what you're buying, but also what you're not buying. And your product, the longer we use your service over time, the more lean and mean our inventory gets, as the stuff that we were unknowingly stocked up on, because we manage, you could tell us better than us, better than me, but I think we've got like 100 and something thousand SKUs in the system, actively buying like 20,000 SKUs or something like that. So there's a lot of inventory that can be weaned out appropriately, and the longer we use it, the leaner we're getting in those areas, while continuing to build in safety buffers for supply interruptions on the stuff that we need to keep the lights on, the fast moving stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. If you're interested in this product, if you've made it this far that you're watching the video, I would strongly recommend it. I think and I think the service model really makes a lot of sense, because obviously it's not like this huge long-term commitment, but then once people see the value, I can't imagine anybody wanting to stop using it.
Yeah, totally. And there's also the revenue boosting component of it too, because not only are you saving money on reducing overstock, but you can take that extra money and invest it into new product lines or other aspects of the business that will make you more money. So it worked.
Absolutely.
Caleb, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your experience today.
Thanks for continuing to work with us. It's been a pleasure.